Hi guys, it's Pam from the Woolly Dragon again. So I just got through doing some yarn dyeing, and I remembered when I got toward the end, I dyed a couple of, actually I did one set yesterday and one today. And I was still in the mood for dyeing. And then I remembered that one of the websites where I have a wholesale account where I get most of my yarn bases. As a matter of fact, Nomad, and I'll put the web address down in the description, had sent me some samples. I want to say right after Christmas, New Year, sometime around there. I didn't write it down, and I stuck it in one of my plastic bins, covered bins, so I can keep the yarn in, keep it out of dust and bugs and all that kind of stuff. And I was going through some things and saw the bag there with the minute. So I decided I would go ahead and, because I had the steamer pans still had vinegar water in them from the last yarn that came out. Hair, not mine. So I thought, well, I will give these guys a try. I would do the same colorway from all three, even though they're all three. I chose three initially to do, and dye them identically, and then see what happens. And this is what I got. And I don't know why I'm looking down. Look up. I'm looking at the little red button. I don't know why I do that. I'm still doing it. Okay, so this was yesterday's attempt. This was today's attempt. Nice, pretty pinky color. And so these two right here, I dyed with royal purple and coral color. And then this guy here on the end, same colorway. So I unwound each skein, and I attached my little zip tie, my releasable zip tie to them, soaked them in some vinegar water just to get them wet for probably about an hour. Just be thorough, and I had to eat lunch. And then I put them in my steamer pan, and I'll show you the steamer pan here in just a second. And basically what I did was I mixed up the two different color dyes in separate containers. So I had about 1 cup of fluid, and they're already immersed in the vinegar water from the last dye bath. And so I poured the purple at one end where the zip tie was, and then the coral color I did at the very end. Now I've moved these away so there's not a little indentation from the zip tie from hanging, but and then I just kind of every once in a while would go through and put them on, put the burners on so the water would heat up, and moved them around every once in a while if I didn't think they were getting covered with the dye or anything like that, or wanted to make sure the dye was penetrating. So this one right here from Nomad is a mohair merino nylon called Cirrus, Cirrus. And I think of the three, it took the colors the deepest. And I think that's probably the mohair. Mohair is really good sometimes at sucking up dye. At least it's been my estimation. So I will come and move these around so it doesn't stick there at where the zip tie is. And then this one right here, this is a 100% superwash merino called Votive, Votive. And I love merino. It's a very good one for sucking up the dye. Didn't take the dye quite as deeply as the Cirrus did. Again, that mohair. But still very lovely. And then this one on the end that looks like somebody's sheepdog that got thrown into the bathtub. This is called Meringue. This is one of those kinds of yarn that is a roving type. Looks like almost like pencil roving. And it does look like a ragamuffin now, but when it dries, it'll be quite lovely, I'm pretty sure. The only thing that I'm saying is that it does have a tendency to shed a little bit, so we'll hope that takes care. This one is alpaca. Let's get this right. I probably said it completely wrong. Alpaca, merino, and nylon. Oh no, well, okay. Yeah, so alpaca, merino, and nylon. So that'll give it a little stability and let the alpaca cling to it. The cirrus over here, not only is it mohair, but there's also silk in it. Silk and what else? That's all I need. Yes. So maybe the silk too is grabbing onto that dye. Yes. All right. Let's go over and you'll see my fourth yarn. Okay, so purple being purple, there actually was some, not leaching, but it ran a little bit with the purple. And I could see in the dye bath that there was still quite a bit of dye left. So I did what Rebecca from Chemknits, I'll verify that in the description if I have that wrong. But she does a thing that she calls a yarn mop. And so I just took a skein of yarn, hank of yarn. And this is another superwash merino, which name is escaping me. I'll put it in the notes or I'll tell it to you when the yarn's dry. But I just put it in dry. I didn't, get it wet first. And I just put it in as the skein. I didn't unwind it or anything. And then as I've moved it around, it's kind of slowly unwound itself. Luckily, I was able, hot water. I was able to find where the yarn separates so I could have that separated and not have a big old tangled mess in the end. But, so this was a combination. The water in here was mostly a little leftover purple, but there was also a little bit of the coral. You can kind of sort of see some little pinks here and there. So once I get that out of the dye bath and get it drying, these should be dry in a couple of days. So this video will not go out today. It'll go out probably in a few days, maybe in time for 4th of July. But yeah, I thought maybe you'd like to see something that actually has to do with dyeing yarn rather than gardening all the time for me. How novel, I know. All right, well, stay tuned for the drying phase. Okay, so this is a couple of days after the first part of this video. The yarn is all dry now. I can get a better idea of the colors. So this was the mohair silk that I am just loving. Let's pick it up here. So this one I'm really digging. And even though the mohairy part of the mohairy, new word, but the strands are pretty easily separated. So I have no worries about whether or not this is all felting together. Furry yarn like this tends to do that, but then when you start working on them and get them wound, they do really well. So really happy with this one, mohair silky. And then this one was the, I know I put the card on you. Where did, there it goes, hiding. That's the Superwash Merino fingering sock weight. And that was my yarn mop. It's kind of cool, actually. Kind of like the effect. Now, whether or not I would be able to replicate this or not, highly unlikely. So, time to get out the info on what to do with one skein of yarn. Because, yes, this one is, petable. This is the Merino Cashmere mix. Right. Merino Cashmere and nylon. So soft. All these are really soft. This one, however, with the cashmere is just super soft. And you'll notice there's some areas where it didn't take the dye quite as much. This one, but how much of that is the fact that this is only 50 grams as opposed to this one being 3.5 grams or 100 grams, twice as weight. And so did the mohair take it and the silk together take the dye much better than the merino and cashmere? Maybe possibly, but I kind of like the effect too. It'd be cool to see it all dyed up. And then here's this. This is the alpaca and merino, I think. Yes, let's see. Alpaca, merino, and nylon. So this is different than the boucle yarn that I use. It has a lower amount of nylon in it than this guy did. So I don't know if that's part of the reason why, it didn't have quite as much depth of shade. It didn't dye as dark as some of the others. I mean, part of it did, but this end, I poured the dye directly on it, so it had no choice, as opposed to these guys kind of stayed homogeneous throughout. And even the one down here, I'm thinking that must be the nylon. Even though nylon is supposed to dye with acid yarn or acid dye, so don't know what's up with that. Is it just the fuzziness of it? And then this guy, I'm going to have to get onto my yarn winder in the Swift and see if I can unwind that. So that's problematic. But still soft. And I'll just have to wait and see how that goes after I get it re-skeined here. And it's amazing that they consider this to be a bulky yarn. So this is probably 2 strands held together that have somehow felted together. So we can hope that separates. So yeah, so if you're ever, going to be dyeing yarn and you're trying out new yarn bases, new websites or shops or anything like that, my recommendation, if at all possible, is to get one skein of what you want. Some of the websites do have like sample packs that you can get one skein of, I don't know how many different, 5 or 6 different varieties. And I mean, you're still going to be basically paying for the yarn. You're not getting a big price break or anything like that. Although some of them might have like mini skeins or something like that you can try. But you don't know until you know. And I took, none of this yarn did I pay for. The company sent me 8 samples. And I've got 4 of the samples here that I've done. So I'm not out any expense for the price of the yarn or anything like that. But it's a good way to, and I'm very appreciative that the website did send me the samples, because now I know that I really love this. This is a nice little fingering weight merino. It's nice and silky and soft. And then this one with the merino and the cashmere, I may just keep it just so I can pet it. And this guy, I don't know. Of course, I'll see when I rewind it, see if I can get it separated so it's a little less dreadlocky. But looking at it undyed, I would have said, oh yeah, that was my favorite. And I did. And now I'm like, I don't know if I'm in as much love as I was before I dyed it. So that's one way to know. And of course, the ones here that I really, really like, these two, of course, are the more expensive ones. But that's just me. Put a catalog in front of me and I will, without prices, and I will pick out the most expensive of the bunch. All right, so hope you enjoyed it. And so the moral of this story is, if you've never used a certain yarn to dye with before, do a sample first and see how you like the color. It may not be what you think. It may not take up the yarn as well. It may bleed. This one bled a lot when I was dyeing it. And even after the yarn bath had, all the dye had been exhausted, when I went to wash these guys, this one bled quite a bit. But they were all in the dye bath pretty much about the same amount. As a matter of fact, this one was in less time because that's the yarn mop to take up the excess that I was afraid wouldn't get absorbed. So experiment, but do it, unless you have money to burn, do it wisely. Bye. Okay, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, a long-awaited yarn/dyeing video from me rather than all the gardening stuff. Mostly it's because I get dyeing and I completely forget that other people might be interested in what I'm doing. So I hope you get anything from it. The main gist of it is to, rather than go investing in massive quantities of a type of yarn that you've never used before, try, buying one skein. And what I have done actually before is taken a single skein and rewound it into mini skeins. So I've got, 5 or 6 mini skeins, and that way I can, or during, depending on what you want to do, you can try a certain dyeing technique, whether you're kettle dyeing or hand painting, or, whatever is currently going through your head of what you want to try. You can try that first on the mini skeins, see if you like it. So basically sacrifice one skein to do your experimenting with, on different techniques and different color dyes and things like that. If you get new dyes in that you've never used before, I do that too, just to kind of see if, am I going to like it? Because it takes a lot of repetition. Obviously if you just want to do primary colors, red, blue, and yellow, and go from there and see what color combinations, that's not a big deal. If you just want to be experimental, that's not a big deal. And of course, again, if you are super rich, you can do whatever you want, including going to my website and buying all my yarn. Kidding, but really I'm not kidding. Go buy anything you want, but kidding YouTube. So try it. The other thing that I do with my mini skeins that I dye, I will knit and or crochet little samples. Now I do it to go on my website so people can kind of sort of see what it looks like when that type of yarn is knitted up or crocheted. That helps out, but it also helps me out too, so I can see if, did I do, did I go too heavy-handed with a certain color on this one? Maybe next time if I like this, color combinations or anything like that, draw back or go down depth of shade or increase depth of shade. There's a lot of experimentation that can be done, and there are very few of the yarns that I've dyed that I've just looked at it and gone, ugh, don't like it. They're all pretty, but there are obviously others that I really appreciate. Now you can probably guess with the way that I dyed these 4 yarns, the one that didn't take the dye quite as heavily, the alpaca merino roving yarn. It's not that I don't think it's a nice color or anything like that. It's just that I love the jewel tones, the really dark jewel tones. So that royal purple and then the coral on top of it. Oh, went to my happy place just now thinking of that color. But yeah, just experiment, but use your yarn wisely. Don't just dump everything all in one pot and then hope that what comes out. And if you're really new at dyeing, don't buy expensive stuff first. Buy some, middle of the road, merino. There are good merinos out there that don't cost an arm and a leg for you to try. Look out for sales. I mean, I am the queen of sales. I mean, I'm lucky having the business. I have a wholesale license, so I can buy stuff and get price breaks because I buy in larger quantities than just, an at-home doing it for themselves kind of person would. But, yeah. Use your time and your money wisely. And if you don't want to spend your money wisely, you know where I am. Website's down below. Bye, guys.